Hey everyone, welcome to the HockeyBuzzcast. We got some stuff to talk about. I hope you guys are awake. I'm really tired from watching last night's games. I don't know about you guys, but Russ, what you got going on this morning?
Well, I thought it was interesting yesterday with the Major League Baseball deadline. Something occurred that I'd never seen before, and probably will never happen in any other sport. There's a top prospect named Taylor Trammell, who still only like 21, 22 years old, and he was involved in his second 7-player trade. Like the last 2 trading deadlines, he's been involved in 7-player deals. Baseball. And this is what baseball's turned into. Like, it never used to be like that.
Yeah.
But it did make for an interesting deadline. A lot of stuff. I really question how hard the deadline was yesterday for Major League Baseball, because even watching the Met game, they said, well, it doesn't look like anything's going to happen. And it was like 5 of, and then all of a sudden, 5 after, they had 3 trades. And I know that there's some stuff in the queue. There couldn't have been that much in the queue. So I got to tell you, Major League Baseball, I don't believe they had a hard deadline yesterday, even though they said it.
Well, Matt, Zach Greinke got dealt at 4:13 p.m. the year before, right? So that's general. Or as Lou Lamoriello says, I have several hours to go, knowing him with his fax machine and the deadline. So we know how that deadline used to work.
I don't know. I mean, I remember, again, when I was in suburban Philadelphia back for a trade deadline show, and we were going to a Flyers Montreal game that night. And was it the Pominville deal that came in like an hour after the deadline?
Yeah, it came in really late.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe they loosened things up a little bit, but I would doubt it. But what I'm surprised at, I'm not surprised that the Yankees didn't do anything, because when they're talking about, wanting to reacquire Lance Lynn and they want Devi Garcia, I think Texas can kiss my ass. But I was surprised about the Todd Frazier thing. That's unless it's J.D. Davis got hurt badly in that game against the Yankees. If he
got hurt badly, would you know? I mean, it doesn't matter. They brought back Todd Frazier because he's a good guy. That's what they basically said, and that's what they're looking for. They're looking for a good guy on the bench that will pat everybody on the back and play a good third base occasionally. And that was one where nobody saw that coming. Like, we all thought when Todd Frazier left, okay, bad experiment. I wrote, and it's still on Sportsology, I wanted Todd Frazier, but I wanted him like 5 years ago when he was available for the Mets, not the older version, because the older version, very mediocre.
Well, I think the Yankees squeezed the last juice out of that lemon, because he was good for like half a season for them. But when he had
a couple of moments last year. He was fine. I mean, again, look, if Davis is hurt, right, you could put McNeil at third base. You can play Frazier periodically. I mean, my bigger question is getting Robinson Chirinos, who's got 5 hits this year. I mean, I'd rather play Tomas Nido or just use Ramos, and we all know they're going to make a big run after Real Muto next year. I mean, especially with Stevie Cohn coming in and a lot of dollars. So
yeah, that's the big thing. At least when they were talking about getting Vasquez, I was like, if they get Vasquez, they may not spend the money on Real Muto. Now the Phillies have to really worry about the Mets being the team that gets Real Muto.
Did I misread it, or did they get Castro from?
They did get Castro from
Baltimore, correct?
He's got a good arm.
He
was supposed to be really good with the Blue Jays a couple years ago, while Eck goes and takes care of his dog.
Well, he was with the Rockies, then he came to Baltimore, and I don't love giving up a guy who's maybe their potential fifth starter down the road in Kevin Smith, but their bullpen needed help, especially after seeing what happened Sunday again.
The one last thing, because I know some people hate baseball in the chat room, but you just have to live with it. The one last thing, when I wrote about this is the Wilpen's last stand, it really is, because 2 of the players that they got have buyouts next year, which of course they won't be buying them out. It'll be Cohen spending the money, a couple $1 million. I think it's $2.5 million in total, buying these guys out, and that is the perfect way for the Wilpons to end it.
It's tip money.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. He still has to spend it.
Yeah.
So one piece of puzzle on baseball, I think that could have an impact on hockey minimally is, so I don't know if you saw, Russ, they announced the draft for next year. So
no, I didn't see that. Okay.
They're moving the baseball draft to during the All-Star break. So it'll be July 11th through 13th. And the rumor is, I know this year was 5 rounds. They're going up to back to 20 or 30 rounds next year.
Of course
the rumor in terms of what they're doing. So not that it impacts hockey, but it's going to be interesting to kind of see how the draft goes this year. And then with all the rumors, the article that came out where we've talked a lot about that, the December 1st date may be written in pencil and could be erased and moved back, and things being moved back. we may end up moving the hockey draft back as well next year, which you could end up seeing another late summer type of draft next year as opposed to the June time frame.
Right. I don't think it's moving it back at this point. I honestly think if they have to go through 2 cycles of what's going on here, that the NHL just could be changing their schedule for a lot of different things. And I think the draft will be one of them.
Right. So you're looking at late summer, could be even early fall
for
the draft. I mean, this year, obviously, we're looking at October because everything really being pushed back.
Yeah, it's October 9th.
The 82-game season, if they do start in January, like we talked about, clearly could end up in a 65-game range potentially, and also depends on when that would end.
Yep.
I agree. Let's get going here. Here we go. September 1st.
September 1st.
Man, oh man.
It's really hard to mess that one up.
We're in fall. We feel not yet, but we feel like it's crazy.
Yeah, it's 80-degree fall day.
Yeah. Hello, Hockey World. It's Tuesday, September 1st, 2020. Right?
I'm Michael Agello, and I witnessed this morning a squirrel staring down a tree.
I'm Jan Levine and curious who won.
Rough tone from Sportsology, and Eck read that with the same confidence Claude Giroux has in his shot right now.
Yeah, there you go. And I'm Eklund. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. It's the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. I wasn't sure about the Tuesday part, but yep, I'm there now. And I've captured the dog, who's like in my past, my kids would help me take care of the dog because the dog wants me to chase it. The second I sit down for the podcast.
Yeah, it's a shame you have to do things for yourself now and you can't make your
kids.
I
have to actually hold the dog because not get the dog like get the dog so the dog stops talking. But this is Panda, everyone. Panda.
All right.
She's looking a little pissed off right now, but she's a little bit,
Well, hopefully she doesn't piss.
That's her general look.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get into where we are. So
why don't we start with Tampa Bay Boston because we can move into the post-mortem of the Bruins, which I think is fascinating.
Can we start positive? Let's start positive for a second, though.
Yeah.
Let's start with the other game for the heck of it now.
Okay.
Just because Nathan McKinnon is having an epic playoff.
He's doing okay.
He's doing okay. He's got 23 points in 13 games. And I was talking through this. The reality of that is, I guess, you can debate how much of the real playoff games they are or different things like that, but
it's still a lot of points, no matter how you do it.
It's a lot of points. And in the other games we played in the in the thing before the actual playoffs, whatever, they were against 3 very good teams. So, it's not like, 23 points is usually about what it takes to win the scoring title in the NHL playoffs.
Right, but you have to subtract the points from the qualifying round.
Right.
You're going to base it on, comparables to other players in other.
Right, yeah, subtract that. But even then, when you're looking at where he's at, he's still only halfway through the second round of the playoffs. With if he could get eliminated very easily, obviously, but with 2 more rounds, we could look at epic type numbers here. Like the record is 47 points put up by Gretzky in 18 games in 84-85. That's
never be
McKinnon only had 3 points in the qualifying or in the round robin.
Okay,
so that's 2 points a game then.
So yeah, that's 20 points in 10 games, right?
Yeah,
that's 2 points a game. I'll take it.
But you made the comparison in your blog today, Ak, about him compared to McDavid. Here's the difference. McKinnon has a supporting cast. McDavid doesn't.
Well, I'll give you one more difference. If you really want to pick on McDavid a little here. So McKinnon does have a supporting cast. He didn't always. But McKinnon also has rounded out his game a lot better than Connor McDavid. He's gotten stronger where now he's beating guys up. He is a true leader. And I don't think McDavid's figured out how to lead yet. And McKinnon's a little older. I get it. But I'm just saying these are leaps that McKinnon has made that McDavid still has to make. McDavid, you can't just rely on what he's putting up as points and say, oh, he's the best player in hockey, because right now he's not.
Well, what I wonder, Jan, is that, and this was a concern, one of the few concerns that people had with McDavid when he was drafted and over the first few years of his career. They wondered 4 or 5 years down the line, when he loses a step, how impactful of a player will he be? McKinnon, I think when he loses a step, he's still going to be strong. He's still going to be able to go to the net. He's still got the shot that he has. McDavid everything is based on that unbelievable blistering speed. He's a great playmaker, but you wonder how impactful he will be when he starts to lose that unbelievable speed.
So two things. So Russ and you, but Mike both mentioned McKinnon in terms of his strength. I mean, that to me has been the difference maker, because we've seen him overpower guys and be able to use his size and his strength to get into position. In terms of the losing a step, Mike, first of all, there's no guarantee McDavid's going to lose a step. And we talked about, look, Mike Grabner hasn't lost a step. Gardner never lost a step. The other piece of the puzzle is are you making the guys around you better beyond by virtue of just your talent, right? McKinnon has been able to make that team around him better. Now, granted, they're still down 3-2, and there's no guarantee they're going to get to that next level. We talked about, I thought they were still the team that could make a run down 3-1. But McDavid, the question is obviously beyond the year he took the Oilers to the finals, and he was a big reason, along with Cam Talbot, why they made it there. Is he making the surrounding talent around him better and propping up their game and being the leader on and off the ice? I think we've seen from McKinnon that he has that capacity, but more importantly, he's utilizing those skills to make the team around him better.
Now, right now, I mean, just to talk about that game last night, because I mean,
it's blitzed is basically the way to describe it, Mike. They were blitzed.
Right, but okay, even before the game started, and we were going back and forth over our group text about this. So slightly surprised that Michael Hutchinson steps in for Francouz. We then find out he was unfit to play. Now, we don't know whether that means that he was unfit to play because they had no confidence in him, or unfit to play because he was hurt. I would have to imagine if he was hurt, or if he wasn't hurt, he would have started. Because Hutchinson has had a horrible year. He's a backup goaltender. Now, he didn't hurt them. But I think the fact he benefited from the fact that Colorado just basically bludgeoned Dallas for 7 or 8 minutes, and when it was up 5-0, and then it was essentially coasting the rest of the game. But I have to wonder, Russ, whether they go back to Hutchinson in Game 6 in an elimination game. If Francouz is healthy, I think they go back to Francouz, but I don't
know. I think they're going to go with Hutchinson.
I think they go with Hutchinson too.
That was his first ever playoff start, which is another amazing thing in this whole soup of the bubble and goalies. But, honestly, I think they decided they want the bigger goalie, Mike. I think that's, as much as anything, they must have looked at the film and said, you know what, Francouz, one thing Francouz does that I've noticed, and this is the most I've ever seen him in concurrent games or anything, he has a tendency to sort of be in the splits and stay down and not get back up, and guys shoot high on him. You can't do that with Hutchinson. And so that may be the difference that they feel like they need. Plus, it did make a difference having Connor Timmins in there with the puck movement. I felt like their whole blue line pushed the whole offense the way it's supposed to in that game, the way we thought they would do, in these playoffs. So that to me.
So, like, my view on this is I would feel more – I think Hutchinson's going to be between the pipes. I think you don't switch the goalie who already won elimination game, even though he clearly greatly benefited from a 5-0 lead because it made things a lot easier. Yeah, and then the downside is he gave up 3 goals. Like, if he had shut them out, I would say, no question you go with him because he's coming off a shutout or a 6-1 game. Giving up 3 goals is not ideal, though. In this series, we've seen 3 goals is clearly not insurmountable and what most you're seeing, right? But I do think that given how he played, given how Francouz looked in terms of the games he's played, we haven't really seen him look good at all, even in the games they've won. Right. So I do think you kind of go back to Hutchinson. And if he wins Game 6, unless he gets hammered and you win like a 7-6 kind of barn burner, you're likely looking at potentially going to him for a Game 7 in another elimination game. My question is, if perchance they do get to the next round, how healthy is Grubauer, or is he completely out for the entire playoffs? Because they can't beat the Golden Knights with Michael Hutchinson in net, assuming Vegas wins. And this was a major miscalculation on the part of Rick Bowness. Not only, like, if it was me and Ben Bishop was healthy, I started Ben Bishop in the second back-to-back game. The way he played yesterday, he did not look like he was 100%. So
that first goal, it almost looked like he had no idea how to set up for that, either because of his favor and his injury, or he just didn't read it right, and it never got better.
I almost got the impression, Russ, that once they saw Hutchinson was the starter, they thought, okay, we're going to win this game. We can play Bishop at 50%.
That's what I think they did too. I don't disagree with you.
Just to get the heat off Khudobin for a game.
Yeah.
Right. And then they had to bring in Khudobin.
The problem is they really made a huge mistake there. I mean,
but not only the goaltending choice, but I think Bonus's game plan was to sort of weather the early storm of Colorado, who they thought was going to be desperate in an elimination game, when they won the game in Game 4 by coming out and bashing Colorado over the head in the first 10 minutes of the first period. I mean, I'm telling you right now, Game 6, if Dallas doesn't come out with their hair on fire like they did in Game 4, Colorado's going to come back and win this series.
They really could. I mean, I did feel like they hurt Dallas's psyche a little in that game. Now, I will say, like Dickinson, whatever sweet nothings he was whispering to Hutchinson, that stuff was good, but I also have to tell you, Jamie Benn's playing right on the edge, and he is going to be either sitting in the penalty box one of these games for 2 or 3 times, or something else will happen where he gets into a fight and he gets, he's out of a game because he is playing too much on the edge. I felt like he was overdoing it, and he's really barreling into the goalies like every time, and they're giving him that leeway. Right. But I'm telling you, that leeway is not going to last.
Well, Perry as well. When Perry responded to Makar by knocking him off of his feet at the net and almost knocked him into Hutchinson, the referees were like, "Screw this!" But I'll tell you this: the guy who's got to watch it, and I wrote about this yesterday. Kadri took another stupid penalty in the second period. He retaliated against Pavelski. I think at that point it was 5-2, and it would have been 5-3 if Dallas had scored a power play goal. Then Burakovsky scored to make it 6-2, and the rally was over with. But Kadri, he's got 8 goals. He's tied with McKinnon with 8 goals. He's like 6th in the league in scoring. If he could just stop being stupid, he would be a really good player. But
he didn't hurt him in that game, and he did score.
He scored the game winner, but he still made a stupid play.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're worrying about that. And honestly, I thought Zadorov moved better now that he's been back for 2 games, and I thought that Ryan Graves really stepped up when Dallas was trying to, play super greasy, almost dirty hockey. I felt like Graves really got to another level that he wasn't able to get to before when Dallas was having their way with him. So I do think there were some good things that happened for Colorado, and this is the big test for Dallas. We're going to have to see what they're made of now, because they do need to come out that next game and probably get the lead, because there's no lead that's going to be safe with Colorado if they decide, hey, we're just going to play fast and loose.
Yeah, I agree.
Which we've seen in this series so far, right? It's been waves, right? It's been streaks. I mean, and look at yesterday with the 4 goals in 2:36, one second off the record yesterday.
Yeah.
So I mean, both teams have shown the ability to put up 2-3 goals in a very short span of time in this series. So the problem is no lead is safe. I mean, 3-0, 2-0. We've seen it turn on a dime, and all of a sudden things flip the switch, right? Which was yesterday, even up 5-0. I can't say I was overly convinced that Colorado was definitely winning that game. And then when it became 5-2, I assumed some little creeps of doubt had to start coming into their head after what was gone on earlier in the series.
I knew they were going to win the game when Khudobin came in and he wasn't completely set. And now this is another thing, Ek, where I feel like just because Khudobin used to be a backup, he sort of got used to being a starter for a little while. And now he's going to start that next game, but it's probably going to feel a little different. I don't know if he's going to be the same Khudobin. I mean, one little thing could throw a goalie off, and he didn't look
for sure
the same either.
I would think that it would actually work. You were saying he's a confident guy, like he's coming back in now. He's the guy who has been the winning goalie. Now Bishop, everyone was saying Bishop should play. Bishop,
but he gave up one quick 2.
He did. But I could see very much Khudobin getting some confidence going. Our dogs are not barking at each other. Awesome.
I know.
Well,
he's going to get booted.
Just great stuff.
Well, I mean, like I said, clearly Bishop is not 100% because he looked out of it.
He looked really bad.
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, I think they tried to get through. I honestly think the Bonus saw the fact that they were starting Hutchinson, thought that they were going to win the game, and thought that he could give Khudobin rest and not have to play him in back-to-back games, and then realized when Bishop couldn't stop a beach ball that was wrong. And Khudobin played pretty decently the rest of the game. He gave up a goal on the first shot, and he had no chance on the Burakovsky goal. So it's Khudobin for the rest of the series. Now it's just a question of whether Colorado can get a passable game out of Hutchinson. I doubt it, but he did play decently yesterday, so I have to give him credit for that. But based on the way he played this year for a team that didn't have any defense, Toronto.
Yeah, no, they still have. If I'm right, they still play every other day, right? So they have. Yeah,
next game is Wednesday night.
Right, Wednesday and Friday, right? Because the Canucks and Golden Knights have back-to-back games 6 and 7.
But I this isn't going out on a limb. I'll just say this: if Dallas doesn't win Game 6, the series is over with. I mean, in terms of Colorado will come back and win Game 7 because they were talking about this yesterday. Dallas was up 3-2 on St. Louis last year, lost Game 6, and then lost in double overtime in Game 7. So this is the test for them. They have to be able to finish, and I think if they play the way not only Johnson is out, not only the two goalies, but Calvert's out and Donskoy was out yesterday, and it was that bull rush at the beginning of the game, 9-10 minutes in that they scored 5 goals. If they, Dallas has got to either weather that early storm, or they've got to be able to take it to the Avs and put pressure on their defense like they did in game 4.
Yeah, no, definitely. So now let's talk about Boston and Tampa. Boston definitely, the players showing a lot of emotion after this game, after losing.
Well, why don't we talk Tampa first, because we can talk about
Tampa. Go ahead.
I have to say, the concern for Tampa going forward is the Kucherov injury, because he came back after the first period, played a little bit, then went back in the locker room and never came back. There's no indication of what specifically it was, although some people think it was a concussion. If it is, then that's a big concern, because that could be 6 to 7 days on protocol. That being said, again, throughout this series, Tampa beat Boston with their depth. It was that third line. It was the fourth line. They had better goaltending out of Vasilevsky. Halak was okay. But Vasilevsky was Vasilevsky, and they did not get hurt after they lost McDonough by putting in Colburn and Shen. Their defense was deep enough, and then McDonough came back yesterday and played really well. So, Tampa is going to, as Russ said, Tampa will be a really tough out now.
Yeah, they're right now playing without Kucherov for the last 2 periods. They didn't miss a beat. I think they have gotten to a place mentally where they do feel like now, hey, we can beat other teams, and they're going to get a reward. They're going to get the hell out of Toronto, and they get to leave that bubble and go to another bubble.
Well, maybe.
Oh, I think they're going to. I think that's.
Oh, they're saying they may play a game or 2 in Toronto.
Okay. Before they do that,
because of the scheduling.
Because everything's ending so quickly, they have more time with Toronto. It's possible that they could even. I even heard it's possible they could play the whole series in Toronto. Actually,
interesting. Okay,
and it just because of how quickly. It depends on the Flyers-Islanders series, obviously, but
yeah. Well, however it works out that way. I felt like Tampa was rolling. Andre Palat with 1 year left on his deal. That's another guy that they're not going to be able to afford to keep unless they move out 2 other players like Tyler Johnson. So I really do think there's going to be a ton of moves at the draft, and I think Tampa is going to be one of these teams that's going to have to do it, because they have players emerging now all over the place that they're going to have to eventually sign.
Oh yeah, and you can see, Marchand and Krejci after the game really upset.
Well,
I didn't even watch. I turned it off.
Yeah,
I saw them interviewed, and it was legitimate. They were. It was kind of, I want to say good to see, but after what we talked about yesterday about teams, do they really want to get out of the bubble or that kind of thing?
I didn't get that.
Obviously, felt like this was a tough that they really feel like this is one of their maybe last chances to.
Well, I'll tell you, Marchand made a big mistake. He had a chance to possibly end that game, and he went and did a spinorama for some unknown reason and got no shot on goal, where if he didn't do that, he could have probably had a great shot on goal and a chance at getting a goal, and I don't know what made him do that. Like, did he just think he was going to be the hero there so he'd make it look good? That was a big mistake by him.
I didn't get the impression that they were not tanking it, but
no, they weren't tanking.
That they were like heading for Pearson Airport. They were trying to extend that series, and you could.
The way they tied it, talk about like one of the most fortuitous bounces in the history of hockey. Honestly,
Yeah.
the Char taking that shot and it just deflecting over to a wide open Krejci with a wide open net.
Well, I mean, I heard the stat this morning. 7 of the 16 goals that Tampa scored on Halak were deflections from point shots. I mean, and a lot of them were like off of Par Lindholm's skate and things like that. So, Tampa was doing the same thing. So it was about time that Boston got something in response in that situation. But I have to say, you look at the way the Bruins reacted after that goal, that they were sort of crestfallen. I think they believed they could come back from 3-1 and win that series. But hearing some of the stuff that came out this morning and last night, okay, Boston fans who are attacking Tuukka Rask, you are morons. You really are. You're a bunch of idiots.
Yeah.
Those Barstool Sports guys who are attacking Tuukka Rask for, I mean, my God, it's like,
I know.
I mean, after that,
lost it for them. It really isn't. I think with Rask, they'd have extended it one more game, maybe even 2 more games, but I still believe they'd have lost. So I think they got to get over that.
And if you watch that series, Tampa's the better team. They just are. I mean,
they are,
and they're probably the best team. They might be the best team in the NHL. I mean, honestly, they're very, very, very good. And this, I mean, I know Boston was the President's Trophy winner, and this is what the 7th year in a row the President's Trophy winner hasn't won a Stanley Cup or something like that. So, that's something. But I mean, I think that obviously Rask is a huge, huge part of it. So I can understand Bruins fans being upset, but the whole point of it is you have to sort of like some perspective.
Yeah, and honestly, I think Chara's coming back. I know Emmerich sort of hinted otherwise, but I honestly think he's going to think about it, look at his team, and know that they've got at least one more run on them.
Well,
True.
He opened the door by basically saying, "Let me think about it."
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's not wrong to do that. I mean, it was a challenging year. This could be a year, where we know the season's going to start in best case scenario in December. It could, if worst case scenario, it could be January or February.
Right.
So it's going to be an odd year. And does he want to come back, or does he just want to say, okay, that's it? What I am curious about is, Tuukka is Torrey Krug going into UFA, whether he comes back or whether he goes someplace else. And I mean, I think he could get probably $7.5 million in free agency, maybe even more. He's not getting that from Boston.
He's not getting that from Boston. The question here is how much money there's really going to be for free agency. Is a really big question because there's not nearly as much as we expected there to be. There's not a lot of time. And heading into this season, I've also talked to somebody yesterday. This was an interesting point that was made, and I do agree with this a little bit. We're going into another unknown season, a season where you're going to have we may very well start in a bubble. It's possible,
right?
It's been discussed. If in the best case scenario, we get some fans towards in halfway through the season or whenever we get whenever people are comfortable going out again, which could be, could take a vaccine and people being comfortable. There's a whole bunch of things that are in there. And a lot of players, may consider based on this is happening because also you have your kids, in schools that are, we talked just on the air before we went on the air. I was talking with Jan about different stuff that's going on with our schools here and his schools. There's a benefit perhaps to some guys staying at home, like signing a little bit right now to stay one more year, like a 1-year deal here. Or, just we're signing, or
if it's their last year, sure.
You're right. If they're looking at a difference between like a couple $1 million, the hometown discount might be more in play this year than it usually is because I think that there's some players because first of all, there's not going to be that much money in the first place. There's not going to be a ton of money out there in the first place. So when you get down to it, the differences aren't going to be like $2 million. They're going to be a couple $100,000.
I'm pretty sure it was Kevin who said on a previous show that there are some players that the hometown discount or that the money not being out there in free agency will not apply to.
Oh yeah, there's always some players like that, but I don't know if Krug fits into that world.
No, I think he does.
I think he's on the edge of it, but I don't know. I mean, I think Peter Angelo does, but I don't know that Krug does.
He's the second best defenseman in this market.
I'll tell you one thing. He will not – if Jeremy Jacobs goes to him with a low ball offer, he is not going to accept it. He would wait until the very last minute to accept it.
Define low ball.
Well, I mean, he's making 4.5 now, so 5.5 for 4 years. He would not accept that.
Yeah, I'll say this: Petrangelo, Krug, Taylor Hall. none of them will take a 1 year deal.
I think you're right with the other two. I don't know. I really don't know that Krug is in that world. I mean, I like Krug. He's a very good player. He might be the second best defenseman available this time around for sure.
Krug wants to stay in Boston. According to Elliot Friedman, Krug wants to stay there.
He wants to stay in Boston. Yeah.
Pietrangelo wants to stay in St. Louis, but that doesn't mean that they'll take a haircut. They won't do an Elliot Friedman beard shave. You know what I'm saying? It's like
no, of course not.
And that's the thing. It's like, why? Okay, a 30-year-old guy like Pietrangelo or Krug, I think is 30 as well. They take a 1 year deal and they get hurt, they're screwed.
They're not doing it. Krug's not taking a 1 year deal.
No, I mean, it's not necessarily that the 1 year deal. I think it applies to other players, not like in the Krug category. But I also don't think Krug is in the category of Pietrangelo.
No, but he's in that next tier, and teams need it.
Yeah,
there are teams that need that. Definitely.
Well, Krug is a
good defenseman out there right now.
Captain your power play. I mean, that's
right.
Who plays bigger than his size?
I mean, there is a certain level in free agency in terms of defensemen right now, and the top echelon in this free agent pool ends at Krug and starts with Pietrangelo, and after them it goes down to Tyson Barrie. And that's a pretty big chasm.
Oh, Sammy Kapanen. I think there's not Sammy Kapanen. I don't know. Sammy Vatanen. Sorry.
I mean, Vatanen. I think
Krug is better than Vatanen.
Vatanen's definitely had a Barrie, and
Krug is far better because he's physical too.
Oh yeah, no, he is. But I'm saying there's a lot of players before you get to Barrie.
No, but that's what I'm saying. I mean, Vatanen will have to wait until Krug signs for him to sign because he's not going to get the same money. I also think you can name 4 or 5 teams that definitely need a guy on their power play, and that's why Krug will get his money.
Yeah, I guess the bet number would be above 6 or above, right? Like,
he's going to get 6.
You guys all think he's above 6?
Yeah,
I think he's right around 6. Based on the current economic situation, I think he goes, unless he goes really short term.
I think he's going to get like 6 by 5. Maybe he'll even get slightly more than that.
Yeah, here you go. Sorry, I was filtering out the UFAs here to see who was
right
for this year. Let me just keep going. I
mean, there are some players out there that are. Yeah, it depends on the kind of defenseman you're looking for, right? Like if you're looking for there's defensive defensemen and there's pure puck moving defensemen.
I mean, defensive defensemen now are going to be so much cheaper, especially in this market that nobody's spending big money on that.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many. There are many options out there.
Like even as an example, Justin Braun will make less than what he probably signed with the Flyers for.
Okay, so Pietrangelo, Justin Schultz. These are by salary from this year. Justin Schultz, Tyson Barrie, Torrey Krug, Sammy Vatanen, T.J. Brody, Cody Ceci, and Chris Tanev. Those are the top 10.
Right.
By salary, right?
By salary. Of that list, Pietrangelo is 1 and Krug is 2.
No question. I don't doubt Krug is 2. I just don't think that is he a generational UFA type thing? He's not like a generation.
None of them are except for Pietrangelo.
He's not going to get $8 million a year either.
Yeah, he's a 6. Yeah, he's
I like Harmonic a lot, by the way. People were asking if I like Travis Harmonic. I do like him a lot.
Harmonic. Harmonic.
Hamonic. I always call him.
At this point, he really is a one-trick pony at this point. There really is no offense. His skating has declined to a bit. He meant more to the Islanders than he did to any other franchise. So maybe the Islanders take him back at some sort of discount. Maybe that's where it goes.
From what I understand, there's still that family consideration with him.
Then he won't be going there.
He may be a perfect fit for Winnipeg because
remember, Mike. I mean, technically, the Islanders are close to West Hempstead. That is in the West.
True. Mike's gonna have no idea where that is.
He doesn't have it. That's a joke for the New Yorkers and Long Island.
New Yorkers out there.
I got the joke.
Yeah, it's in Nassau.
Yeah. Nassau County. Yes.
I know there's 2 counties on Long Island. I get it. I'm hip.
Excellent. I'm trying to get to someone asked about Cody Ceci in the room too. Brendan Dillon, there's another one. See, these aren't necessarily.
Yeah, but okay, Cody Ceci will have. Cody Ceci made $4.5 million last year. He will have to take probably a 50% pay cut to get a contract.
Yeah.
Nobody is going to pay. He had 8 points last year, and he played okay.
And remember what the X factor in this, the one guy who could seriously change the market and hold up at least Torrey Krug would be D'Angelo. If the Rangers decide that they aren't going to keep him and they try and trade him, teams will be falling over themselves to get D'Angelo before they go to spend big free agent money on the other guys. Even though they'll have to pay him, they won't have to pay him the same kind of money, and they'll get similar points. They may not get similar, toughness and all, but that's something where that he would be very attractive if all of a sudden the Rangers decide they don't want him.
And with this, because I appreciate you guys on watching, but I'm going to do going to give you a little bit more than I'll get in trouble for this. But I'm going from my web designers. I'm going to show you a little bit more of the rumor chart than I usually do. Here we go. All right, so let's get into these three guys. CC, Brody, and Barry. Three guys you just mentioned in your list. And below them is Justin Braun too. But we'll get into these. So these three, and where they're going to, they're very different players. Obviously, they're very different players. I think Cody Ceci is better than the Toronto people make him out to be, and not as good as the Ottawa people originally made him out to be. I think he's in the middle there somewhere.
The Ottawa people thought he was worse than the Toronto people did.
Well, no, in the beginning when he came into Ottawa, he came in with really huge accolades.
Yeah, because he was a 67, he was a local kid. That's why. Right.
So there was a lot of stuff, and he didn't live up to that, and I think that's why Ottawa eventually got rid of him and all that stuff. In Toronto, I thought he was better than people gave him credit for, but you watched him every day, and you really don't think he's very good at all. So
the issue was, as with most of the time under Mike Babcock, he played a player out of position for what his talents were. He played Cody Ceci because he was a right-hand shot on the top pairing with Morgan Riley. He's not a top pairing defenseman. He's a 4, 5, or 6. That's his talent level. I think they didn't do him any favors by putting him on the top pairing and exposing him to more minutes than I think he should. That's why I think there's literally no chance unless he takes like $1.5 million on a 1-year deal that he comes back to Toronto, and I don't think that's happening. So, but Edmonton, I don't know, because the only way I could see him going to Edmonton is if they trade Adam Larson or trade Clefbaum. If they don't, and CC's a right-hand shot, I don't see them getting rid of Chris Russell unless they buy him out. And
they already re-signed him, right? And they re-signed. Did they just re-sign Chris Russell to something?
No. He's on the last contract.
I thought they just in the day or so.
That was Patrick Russell.
I'm sorry, wrong Russell. Apologize.
No, but Edmonton, and Russ knows this. Edmonton's got 2 really good defensive prospects in Broberg and in Evan Bouchard. They got Ethan Bear, who's a good young defenseman. They got
Bear's had a great year, actually.
Yeah,
I like him a lot. I like him. He's a good player.
They had Seth Jones' brother, Caleb Jones, on there as well. They have a lot of young defensemen. They may want to add a veteran, but they would have to move out one of the existing veterans to be able to compensate for that.
Right.
Yeah, and I can't see the Rangers being in on him because right now you have Fox and Lindgren as a pair. You have Trouba, who's back, and I don't see him going. Mm-hmm. Even if you, let's say, don't bring back D'Angelo, at best, CC's a 4th defenseman, and I don't necessarily know he's a second pairing, he's a third pairing guy. And then you have the pipeline of guys coming up over the next several years, including Miller, Kristen Robertson, Zach Jones, and everybody else. And you still have to figure out what you're doing with Mark Stahl and Brendan Smith. I can't see them getting CC unless he's on such a discount that it makes sense to bring him on board, and you have him on your second pairing, which doesn't excite me to any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, if CC wanted a 2-year deal, they'd probably take him because then they could figure out the problem with Stahl and Smith.
Right. A lot of these prospects are a couple years away.
Yeah, but you'd have to buy out Stahl and Smith, which and that's 2 years.
Defensive prospects.
Next year, they only have 1 more year on their deal, and then they're gone.
No, but Miller's not ready for a year or two anyhow.
I think it'll be ready sooner than you expect.
Oh, I listen. You could say that. People were saying that about Kravtsov, and now he's playing the year in the KHL. They better not rush Miller because I'm telling you, if they put him in right away, he didn't have the greatest year this year. He's not ready for the NHL. He's not.
He may be a year away. I agree with you. I mean, unless CC comes cheap because they also have all the other guys they need to re-sign, that's going to be part of it as well. They have a lot of RFAs and a UFA. They have to consider what they're going to do.
Moving on to Brody. The one complicating factor with the Canadians lead left side defensemen. They have
Yeah.
Petrie, and they have Weber on the right side. I believe Romanov's a left-hand shot, so they'll probably pair him with one of those guys. Brody is a lefty who plays the right side, and that's the problem. I don't think he I remember talking to Sean Vetter a few years ago when they tried to move him to the left side, and it was a disaster. So he may fit better in as a right shot defenseman, a right-handed on the right side as a left shot, and that doesn't work for the Habs. It might work for somebody like LA, who I think just needs defensemen who are NHL quality. That they need those guys.
Yeah, and I mean,
well, and Brody's been dropping every year. Like Brody was down to 19 points this year. Now he did have that problem where he passed out of practice. I mean, that's that probably was a contributing factor. But his numbers have gone down every year.
Oh yeah.
16, 17. So he's not going to get a lot of money.
No, I mean, and I think Montreal has other things in store too, Mike. It's why I put them up higher there, because I was hearing other stuff coming out of Montreal. I mean, I know.
I'll just say this: it's like with what we saw in the playoffs. If Mark Bergevin is not spending his cap space on offense, he should be fired. Because that's the only thing that this team is. I mean, could they use some depth defensemen to help them out, help Petrie and Weber and Romanov? Take some of the weight off of a Sherratt or off of a Kulak. Yes, but Brody's not a depth defenseman. He's a top 4 guy. He's probably going to expect 4.
I did feel like there was an issue with Montreal's defense in both series, Pittsburgh and Philly, in terms of transitional game. Like I felt like they weren't the best at getting out of their zone sometimes, and they weren't the great. Like I think that they could use better playmaking. A little more. Victor Mete has turned into basically a one-dimensional player,
bottom pairing guy.
Yeah, and that's still surprising to me. And I think he's the perfect example, Russ, of someone who was rushed. Right, Victor Mete is just.
Mete was rushed tremendously. I mean,
he has so much potential.
He's still a good puck mover, but as far as his decision making, I feel like that's not where it should be yet. And there would have been a little more offense had he not been rushed, I think, and I think it will still come.
Yeah. I mean, he's such a good skater that he's always going to have a spot, I think, for a little bit. That goes. And
Barry in Winnipeg makes a lot of sense, obviously, because Buffalo was the right hand shot.
Yep.
Barry's the right hand shot. Barry would be the point guy in their power play. I think they could I think he'd be better on the power play than a guy like Pionk.
Yeah.
So that makes a lot of sense. I don't know whether Detroit makes any sense for that, because Detroit is so far away.
Yeah, I don't think Barry's the right guy.
Again, remember what's happening here, because we have a lot of defense on this chart, a rumor chart, tons of defensemen on this chart, and not a lot of money out there again. And there's going to be situations where the teams that have cap space are going to end up getting some real bargains with players that just don't end up anywhere. And I can see Tyson Barrie being one of those guys. I can see Barrie being.
You think he's not going to end up anywhere? I don't think that's going to happen.
Someone else, no. But if think of the big teams that could go for him, like Winnipeg, Toronto. Well, Toronto's not obviously Winnipeg, the Islanders. I mean, the Oilers. Teams that really are looking for defense. Maybe San Jose. I heard San Jose has no interest in him. I heard Edmonton. I heard has no interest in him. I tried because then you'll see like Anaheim on here. There's really not a lot of interest for Barrie right now. His stock is really low.
Yeah, well, that's because he's coming off a bad year in Toronto. But the thing is, I don't know whether Tyson Barrie is the Cody Franzen of the 2020 free agent class. Remember, everybody thought he was $5 million a year, and then everybody passed on him, and he got a 2-year deal with Buffalo. I think everybody realizes that Barrie wasn't a good fit in Toronto, that he got screwed around by Babcock, and that when they played him in a position as a power play quarterback and as a puck rusher, he had almost 40 points. So I think he won't get what he expected to get, which was probably 6 to 7 million. He'll get 5.
He'll get more than 5. Jake Gardner got 5.
Yeah, but so the question is,
from Tampa Bay, Strawman got 5.5. So Tyson Barrie will get 5.5.
Yeah, but Strawman's a better defensive defenseman than Barrie is. I mean, the other piece of the puzzle is in Winnipeg, it makes sense, but while Pionk was better defensively, I think, than we all thought, he also is much more of a power play offensive type defenseman, or you're going to want two guys like that without having guys that offset them that are better defensively as well. And that's part of the problem. You're improving your defense by getting a better offensive guy, but you're not improving your defense holistically, which is going to leave Hellebuck subject to siege again.
Well, and also what we have to factor in with this defensive market that's going to be in free agency are the defensemen that are potentially going to be on the trade market. We just started hearing, like in the last week, about Oliver Ekman-Larsson. It seems like Arizona is really going to be in a sell mode and in a rebuild mode. We've talked ad nauseum about Gostisbehere with Philadelphia. I think he'll attract interest simply because his cap hit is low.
Right.
He's young, and people think he can bounce back. And, and Russ, the name that's been talked about with St. Louis, if they do sign Pietrangelo, not as much Parayko. That was a rumor that popped up a week or so ago. But Vince Dunn, who's an RFA, who is expect to get money, they can't afford it if they sign Pietrangelo.
They'll do something else. They'll use Alex Steen's money. They're not getting rid of Vince Dunn. I would be completely shocked.
And Ristolainen as well.
Yeah. They're going to lose money from some of their veterans. They will not get rid of Vince.
And I'm working on a story, Mike, just about that exact topic.
But I will say this. Hold on, Nick.
About the wingers who could possibly be traded here.
Okay. One thing before that, if Armstrong, the assistant Armstrong, the other brother, if he were to go to Florida and become the general manager, you might see some action between Florida and St. Louis then.
Yeah,
sure.
That's true too. Florida GM, man, that situation is so crazy. I might have more on that soon. They are just doing probably the most exhaustive search I've ever seen for a GM. That in my time covering this, it's amazing how many people they've interviewed.
Yeah, and are we gonna buy into these Patrick Laine rumors that are?
I'm
not yet. Nope.
Ehlers, maybe they'll kick the tires on. Laine is not getting traded.
No, I mean he's just that's too risky at this point. Yeah,
I think the bigger issue is that the lack of a second line center, right? Brian Little was kind of filling that role. Then they brought in Cody Eakin in the hope that he was going to fill that role, and he didn't have a particularly good playoffs, which also is a big factor there. I mean, and then they lost again. Losing Mark Scheifele was
that's what killed him. I mean,
incalculable loss. I mean, that and their poor defense were the two things that killed them.
But right. I mean, the Buffalo thing, they didn't know was going to happen.
No, but I'm talking more even when they got to the playoffs, right? That was huge.
Okay, we have
second line
but
center.
Here's the other thing, though. When you're talking about this team, if you get rid of Laine, where is your shot on the power play? That screws up your whole power play.
You got it.
They've been trying to fill that second line center role for 3 years. They traded for Paul Stastny. They traded for Kevin Hayes. They traded for Cody Eakin. None of it worked. Brian Little got hurt. Now they have Scheifele and who else in the middle?
Stastny was fine, and I think they thought they were going to get Stastny back until he signed with Vegas, right? They really thought they had a realistic shot of bringing him back.
Yeah, Peter told us he had
Vegas kind of swooped in and grabbed him, and that kind of removed who they thought was going to be their second line center.
Right. All right, we got to talk about the games tonight because we have some people. We have a lot of Flyers and Islanders fans watching who are texting and putting stuff in there that they want to talk about.
I think is the other guy they thought could move into that spot, but that was wishful thinking.
Why? Because that series is going to be over with tonight?
Ooh. No, because we have to talk about it. It's happening tonight.
Shot across the bow by Jello. Hey, how's that
feeling? It seems to be, so obviously you're going to see Carter Hart back in goal tonight. The question is, will the rest? It's more of like a mental rest, I think, than anything else. Help him.
Yeah, it's a mental rest. That's what it is.
It was absolutely needed. And Flyers fans who are getting pissed off, it's not fair to put Carter Hart in that situation. They did the right thing.
Listen, this will be the most.
It wasn't the reason why they lost that game.
It wasn't the reason. No, it wasn't the reason. Exactly. It wasn't the reason at all.
This will be the most pressure-packed game of his NHL career. And honestly, it's a shame because he probably has to go in with the mentality that I can't give up more than 2 goals. If he gives up more than 2 goals, they're going to lose.
Yeah, I mean, the Flyers have to get a lead for him to help him out. If they can get a couple, if the Flyers
even their leads haven't been safe.
Even leads haven't been safe, but I think that playing like you said, playing on the edge like that is a lot to ask.
I
agree. Something about Carter Hart is examining the goals that the Islanders scored on in the last 2 games. It was funny. I was looking at it. Only one of the goals against Carter Hart in the last 2 games made it to the actual goal itself. Like they ended,
but that's how the playoffs is. Like
I know, but just trickling over the line. So it's but showing you the Hart's getting a piece of it, getting a piece of these things and not stopping completely. and some of the situations where maybe a goalie wouldn't have gotten a piece of it at all. I mean, they're great attempts by him. I'm not taking that away from him, but I'm saying that there's.
Let's not put ourselves in a position to say Hart has not given up that many bad goals, because he has.
No, he has. He has not had a great series.
He doesn't have a stellar playoff record here, and that goes with him being
against Montreal.
But everybody expected him to go in and just start pitching shutouts and having all these 1-goal games, and we're going to ride it to the cup. And as they can see, when the rubber meets the road, there's a lot more to it. There's a lot more factors.
Oh yeah, no. This tonight really is, to me. Tonight really is about what Claude Giroux has. We saw a lot of. I think he gave a lot of what he had last game. We got to see more of that tonight. Is Konechny playing hurt like you assume he is? Russ,
I think he is.
Here's an idea that Vigneault might want to try. If you're going to play Giroux as your third line center, why not play him with somebody who can score like Van Riemsdyk? Because honestly, now the thing is, I was dumbfounded when I was looking at some stats today, and I knew that Van Riemsdyk was a healthy scratch for 3 or 4 games, that he has no points in 9 games.
No points in 9 games. It's astonishing. And, but a big part of that, Mike, is the fact that the Flyers power play doesn't score, at all. If you're going to get JVR is going to get points, he's going to get points on the power play for Philly. That's where he's always gotten his points, because he's part of their first and second unit at times, But
if you're going to play Giroux at center on the third line behind Couturier in the number 1 and Hayes on the number 2, then put wingers that can score with them. That's the only way you're going to break that offense loose. Now the thing is, what the Islanders are going to do. The Islanders are probably going to match up if they put Giroux on the center of the third line. They're probably going to match up either Cizikas, Clutterbuck, and Martin against that line, or the Komarov line against them, and they'll try to beat them into the boards.
Yeah, they will. I mean, this is a matchup. This would be a matchup for the Flyers, though. This is their matchup because they're home. They're the home team in this one, so that helps a little bit. Maybe
that helps a little bit.
Helps a little bit. I want to see what Vigneault has. I mean, Vigneault so far has shown me, not enough. Like in the playoffs in general, like I feel as if he has the Flyers playing into the hands of Montreal. And
he is the one thing. If you want to lay some criticism on him, he has shortened the bench. Like he's never had an opportunity to put Morgan Frost in, and now he's not played at all, which is now hard if you're going to all of a sudden put him in a game that might decide your season, when you could have put him in a million other games. What you had in this kid, and you haven't done it. That's where I think Vigneault has shortened the amount of guys that he trusts to put in. And now
this is the problem sometimes with old coaches, right? This is like the old coach problem sometimes.
Right,
like old coaches trust guys that they know are defensively responsible in all situations. And the issue right now is the Flyers offense. This is one of the highest scoring teams in the NHL this year. The Flyers, they're like 3rd or 4th in the NHL as far as, we have not seen any of that in the playoffs, right? So what we are seeing them do is play a defensive style against 2 very, very defensive teams in Montreal and the Islanders. If I'm him, I'm going for it. To me, I'm just going out and throwing the offense forward and challenging the Islanders forwards to play with the Flyers forwards to try to goal for goal with them. Because I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, right now the Islanders forwards are doing much better, but all that is all from the Islanders counter attacking or forecheck. There's not like they're not when they go play back to back. Like if you're going end to end, the Flyers should be able to. They have proven to be able to be better than the Islanders at that game. I don't know why that game's not happening. Like that to me, that I know a lot of it has to do with the Islanders. Obviously, they're doing a good job forechecking and checking in the neutral zone. But Jan, go ahead.
So part of my criticism with AV when he was in New York was his inability to adjust in-game and also within a series, right? He did it against Ottawa, where they kept making the same mistake late in games and never switched up. And especially in-game adjustments, he doesn't do a particularly good job of in-game adjustments, and I think that's what's impacting them here as well. You're playing into a style while it's keeping you in game is not allowing you to potentially win those games for the most part because you can't match up stylistically with the Islanders. I'm not saying you should just go for broke because you're going to get countered to death, but they need to modify kind of the breakout and how they're handling playing against the Islanders' style of play and their counterattack. And right now, he has not made any changes at all this series that have been apparent to me from watching game to game and even in game.
All he tried to
The
do
other
is
thing I would say, and there's a lot of talk about it, if they put Gostisbehere in this game, they're crazy. I would never do it. Their turnover factor in their own zone's been bad enough. Now you're going to start having them on the power play in the neutral zone if you add Gostisbehere in there for maybe one goal. You might get one goal, but you probably won't.
Yeah. No, really, honestly, if you were going to get Giroux going, the time I saw Giroux play at his best, and see, the problem is the Giroux looks bored to me. Like this is, I mean, I don't know if you're getting that at all, but I don't
think he looks bored. I think he's frustrated to the point where he made a diving play and
no, he made a great. No, I'm not saying. Yeah, but he last game was his best game.
Could he be hurt?
What was that?
Could he be hurt?
I don't think he's hurt. No.
I think this is what I think he needs. And the times I saw Giroux playing at his best this year in general, which was, I mean, remember last year he was the second leading scorer in the NHL or something like that. This year he's the 50th or 60th. The times I saw him best this year was when he played on a line with Farabee and Frost, which was kind of, it was just two players that kind of are Giroux-like, when Giroux was younger. And it kind of
okay with that. You'll never see it though.
I know it, but that line, Vino did play that line a lot during the regular season, and it was fun to watch because it kind of took Giroux back to his roots of what Giroux does, because he's watching these kids do the kind of moves that he does, and that to me was really a fun line to watch. If you're going to get Giroux going, that's the way you get him going. To me, you have like younger guys pushing him to do his thing, because what's happening right now is. And you get Giroux out of being like defensively responsible, which is what's happening right now, because he's not going to be defensively responsible at all. So, to me, it all comes down to that. If the Flyers, come out like Colorado did last night and put a bunch of goals in, and they got the guys going, this is still a series. Otherwise,
I'm going to walk this down the road, Ek. I really do feel like you probably still should play Morgan Frost tonight, just for Chuck Fletcher's benefit, because. I know. He kind of needs to see what he hasn't played this whole playoff. You kind of need to see what Morgan Frost is, because there is still the question of everything at the center position for this team.
And not even Fletcher's benefit, because this, of course, was Hextall, but the Braden Shen trade depends on this still. You know what I mean? Like,
but I'm talking about Nolan Patrick. It's like, it's nice to say he'll be back next year. You can't bank on that when he'll be back next year. And if you don't know if you could use Frost in big situations, how do you know Frost is going to make the team? And if you don't know if he's going to make the team, you've got some, because again, those other two centers, one center, but Grant and Thompson are old. At this point, you wouldn't want to bring them back. There's no point. Even if you had the cap money, you wouldn't bring them back. They were 1-year plugs, and they're at the end of their rope anyhow. The Flyers have a lot of things to consider this offseason. Everybody is going to want to say, hey, they're a great team and they're moving in the right direction, but they're still a team that is young too, and they're going to have some problems.
Well, the benefit of them is that they are young defensively. They've got a really great future, obviously. Offensively, they still have some players, and as you know, in the Phantoms that are really good prospects that are going to, we haven't seen yet. I've seen bits and pieces of this team. This team is set up pretty well, and then you got the great young goalie. I mean, they really are.
They may not be set up well for next year. They might be set up well in 2 or 3 years.
No, I agree. This might be like the last burst that's being like, because this is the interesting thing. What made the Flyers interesting to me this year was what I never expected from them at all, which was that they would actually turn into that team that has
Stay alive, Mike.
That has a couple veterans, right? That are the Flyers would have some. Mike?
It's Flyer conversation. He zones out. Come on.
No, he's like this.
It's the most boring series of all of them. So what the hell do you expect?
Let me finish the thought, and then we'll move on. But I just think, to me, the thing like you saw with the San Jose Sharks, the year the San Jose Sharks went to the Stanley Cup Finals, it was because they had enough veterans around that were still producing enough, and the young kids were coming up. But then what happens is those veterans get old. The Sharks take a dip back. I think the Flyers are sort of following that trajectory. They are that Sharks team right now that went to the finals. Then they might not make it to the finals, but they are that team. But when the older players, are completely gone out of the scene, it's going to take, like the Sharks it's going to take some time. And then
Martin Jones fell back to earth.
Yeah. I mean, but this, and they obviously have a better prospect in Carter Hart than Martin Jones. But the whole prospect thing is good. I mean, I don't know how Flyers fans feel about this if they lose tonight. In my opinion, they got way further than I thought they ever would. But you feel like they should. The frustrating thing is you feel like you should beat the Islanders, right? So it's a real frustrating spot. I'm getting so many Flyers fans things. That's where they're at.
I think Flyers fans have been sold a bill of goods after they finished first in the round robin, which was basically meaningless.
Right.
It's like, okay,
it goes back more to like the 10 games in a row win streak, like, and stuff like that. Like, it goes back further than that.
Well, maybe, but I separate everything from before the pandemic to,
Yeah.
like the Sabres won 10 games in a row a couple years ago. What the hell did that mean? So it's
I mean, in the bubble, nobody's winning 10 games in a row. That's
but this was a team that, and like you say, Mike, you to separate it out, then this is a team that was starting to show signs of real positive stuff towards the end of last year, quote unquote. And then after the offseason, they grew a year, and some of the older players have not grown a year well. And some of the younger players, are
no, but that's the thing. It's been a full year.
Right.
That's what I was talking about. You added Thompson and Grant, and they were artificial plugs. And now over a full year, which has been, they don't look so good. And Niskanen doesn't look so good going into next year now either. He's starting to be a problem.
Yeah, and that everybody kind of felt was a short-term thing, Niskanen.
He's got $5.75 million next year in a cap hit, which is a large cap hit for somebody of the type of player that he is.
It's okay, though, because if he's a first pairing defenseman, over $5 million is not horrible.
Well, he's going to play first pair, but
I don't know if he's really a true first pairing defenseman.
Right.
I mean, it depends how well he can adjust his game to be Provorov's sidekick. Like, if he can continue to do that, if he can learn more about Provorov, then
I think it's more about tread on the tire. It has nothing. Provorov will cover for him, but I think it's more about tread on the tire. He is like, basically, he's like that car that you hear coming down the road that's just sputtering.
Yeah, right now I kind of agree with you. I think it's going to be a game tonight. I could see an overtime game. I could see very much something like we saw.
I have no idea what to expect. I think, except for the usual, the Flyers will come out like gangbusters for 5 or so minutes. The Islanders will attempt to settle in the game. Then they'll start playing their game, and then beyond that, I really don't even know.
Well, let's at least say a little something about Vegas, Vancouver before.
This one feels like. This to me feels like Vancouver is obviously really fighting uphill. So much to the point that I'm going to say Vancouver's going to win tonight. I'm going to tell you that right now.
Of course you will.
No, because the way hockey works, there is no one. I have not heard a single. I've heard people talk about the Flyers maybe winning. I've heard no one talk about Vancouver possibly winning tonight. So therefore, it'll happen. That's how hockey works. Haven't we learned this yet? Have you guys? Every time this happens, you guys don't believe me. Every time I'm right. And
JT Miller plays like he did the other night. I think they have a shot, but more importantly, somebody besides Quinn Hughes has to show up on that blue line. Because if that blue line keeps playing as they played the last couple of games, this series is over.
I mean, Eck, you are right about some of these, but we could do a blooper reel run of these where you're not too. Trust me.
Thank God we're not laying money unless we're going the opposite.
I need somebody to do like a chat room here. And then someone in the chat room to back me up on this. Like, I've been right on these locks this year. I've gotten all the locks right, by the way.
Oh my God.
I almost missed the lock, Russ. I almost missed the lock with the Flyers. I went to overtime. I granted you that one. But I'm giving you Vancouver as a lock tonight.
Okay. Take it to the bank or the other way.
What was that?
I said take it to the bank or just bet the other way.
Yeah, right. If you don't think I'm ever right, which would be wrong because I was right about Montreal winning. I was right about a bunch of things.
Jesus Christ, let's end the show.
Thanks for being so open-minded, Mike. I really appreciate the fact that you can look at things from another angle sometimes and take that thing about for all of you. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you tomorrow.